Benjamin Hall, we meet again. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing really well, Mark. Thank you.
You must be exhausted. I mean, it's hard enough to write a book, but to promote it, and you have been nonstop. You have to admit, it's exhausting, isn't it?
You know, it can be exhausting, but I'll tell you something else. I've spent a whole year recovering, doing nothing but doctors and operations and physios and thinking, and all I've wanted to do was get out and start working and living and talking. So to be honest, this past week has been busy, but it's been a real breath of fresh air to be doing it again.
Where did you get this positive mind? You are positive no matter what. Were you born with this? Do you have to work on it? What?
It's funny, my wife was asked that last week, and she told everyone how annoying it was. So I'm positively optimistic. No, I have always been like this. I'm very lucky. You know, I was taught it by, I suppose, my parents. My father was very disciplined, always taught me the nature of and how important hard work was. And my mother was a real creative, artist who loved to experience new things and meet people and do lots of things. So I felt I grew up in a world where everything was possible. You should enjoy everything. You should work hard. And, whenever anything bad happens to you, you've got to find the one bright spark and make the most of the good part of it.
Now you say where, so I assume they're not with us, or they are with us?
No, they've passed away, I'm afraid. My mother died about 4 years ago. My father died last January, and I flew straight from his funeral to Ukraine, where I was then hit. And I think in many ways he was with me that day and kept me alive. So, I think about him every day. And, sometimes I wish he was here to have helped me through this year. Other times I feel I'm pleased that he hasn't seen, how difficult it's been.
And you tell the story in your fantastic book, Saved, and we're going to link to it on all my social sites. It's Saved, a war reporter's mission to make it home. Now, you've seen Benjamin. I notice your wife calls you Benji, and you've seen Benjamin everywhere, but you ought to get his book, and you ought to read it, because no matter how many places he goes to, it's not the same as reading this book, that's for sure. And tell us about your father as well.
Well, my father was born and raised in the Philippines, in Manila, and he was born just before the Second World War. And his father was Scottish, his mother was Spanish-Filipino, and the Japanese invaded when he was 8 years old. And for 4 years, he was in a Japanese prison camp. His family were killed, and he eventually was released, and he lived for a couple of years in the bombed-out streets of Manila. And at the end, when General MacArthur came back in to free the Philippines, my father was living in the streets with his 3 younger siblings who were, as young as ages of 6. And he knew that the Japanese were killing everyone as they pulled back, and that the only way to survive was to try, as someone told him, to find the American lines, get to the GIs who were coming in. And he did that. He took a group of kids and he ran through the bombed-out streets. Sniper shot the little boy next to him until finally they reached the point in the city where the Americans were at the other end of the street, and they were shouting at him to keep running, run to us, run to us. And he made it down that road. And he always told the story to me about being picked up into the arms of a GI from the Buckeye Division, the Ohio National Guard. And he was pulled behind a tank, and he was rescued in an armored vehicle. And he was rescued that day. And from there, he made his way to the U.S. himself. And he went to college. He signed up and served for the U.S. Army in Korea. And, he was saved around the world by American GIs when he was in trouble, and he became the fiercest and proudest American ever. And I feel the same way. And about 77 years later, I was around the world, an American stuck in a war zone. And I made it to Poland, and there was the U.S. military who opened their arms and got me into a Black Hawk and saved me too. And so, I talk about it in the book. There is this incredible similarity. We come from a family of proud Americans that has been saved around the world by our incredible forces. And so that's something I feel incredibly strongly about. And I was so lucky then to spend 5 months on a military base in San Antonio, Texas, recovering with incredible military doctors who knew all about the wounds and the injuries that I'd received when I was blown up, putting my prosthetics on, teaching me how to walk. And I felt that for the first time, having covered conflict for so many years, I finally felt I was inside the military, and I lived with them for 5 months. And it's sort of really brought out some incredible feelings in myself.
Benjamin, I was thinking you've been asked an awful lot of questions, people who've read your book by a lot of very good hosts. And what can I ask you that would be different than these other people? We know what you went through, and so forth and so on. But one thing I don't know about is you talk publicly, but it's in your book about the months of rehabilitation and so forth and so on. Can you tell us about the pain you experienced? I mean, you lost a leg, your eye was severely wounded, you had shrapnel in your throat and so forth.
Yeah. My left foot as well, and burns all down,
and your
down
hand?
my legs.
Yeah.
Hand, the thumb torn off, really, and so no, very serious injuries. And I, after the initial life-saving operations in a very small Ukrainian field hospital, that was the last time I got pain meds. And the evacuation from there to Poland took about 10 hours. We got out covert way with the Polish Prime Minister, but those 10 hours I felt some of the worst pain that I've ever felt. And it grew on me, and it just kept growing. And I reached points, immense pain down in my stump and where the burns were, that took over my whole body, that made me just shake. And what I found out was that when it almost became too bad, when I didn't think I could take it, I would stop, and I would say to myself, you've got to put those feelings away. You've got to focus on getting out of here. You've got to focus on survival. And I found, I was amazed that I found another level where sometimes I could grab hold of the pain and I could put it away. And I could say, it doesn't matter right now. You've got to see past it. You've got to see past it. And I did that time and time again over the next 5 months. There were some awful days after operations, and I was trying to come off the pain meds as quickly as I could because I didn't want to be on them. And there was a constant battle between being on the pain meds but having a really cloudy mind, or being off the pain meds and feeling pain. And I was always trying to find that balance, to as much pain that I could handle before I needed some help. And it was, it's really difficult. And you learn a lot about yourself. You learn how much you can handle, about how far you can go. You learn how powerful the mind can be to control some physical emotions. And look, it's a small example, but if you go and knock let's say you knock your toe on the wall one day, and the first second it might hurt, just think to yourself, it's not bad. It's fine. It won't hurt forever. It'll go away. And you will be amazed at how strong your mind can be to just keep moving, keep living. Put those things to the back of your mind and ignore them.
Of course, you've talked about thinking of your daughters when the attack occurred, thinking of your family, your wife. Do you ever wonder why you, out of the 5, you were the only one who survived?
Yeah, I do. I think about that moment a lot. And I was sitting in the death seat. I mean, I was in the middle seat on the back row of that car. I mean, the most likely to be killed. And somehow I'm the one that survived. And I do think that I was saved that day. I do think that, it wasn't my time to go. And I think maybe God thinks that I hope I can be able to do, I feel that I have to do better things in the future, that I've got to take whatever amazing miracle that was. I don't think about it too much, but I know I've got to do the most in my life. I've got to go and help wherever I can. I've got to try and make sure I don't waste a second that's left. Do I wonder why it was me? Not specifically. I know I was saved, but I don't ask why me and why not the others. Sasha, our fixer, was 23 years old. So I just count my blessings. I'm so grateful for it, and I pray for it.
Do you think about them a lot?
I think about every single day. Every single day. And I think back to that moment where I was lying on the ground. We'd been hit. The 3 were gone, and Pierre was still alive.
The book is Saved, a War Reporter's Mission to Make It Home by Benjamin Hall, a war correspondent who was brutally injured, almost died in Ukraine. And let me ask you this, Benjamin. Again, people can read this in the book. So the first, is it a missile that they shot? Somebody shot a missile from, I guess, a shoulder, one of those devices?
No, we're, to be honest, we're not entirely sure what was fired. There were three explosions. We thought at first it was a drone, Pierre was lying there afterwards next to me, and we were injured, and he kept saying, "Don't move, Russian drones," but it could have been artillery as well. And we are talking to the Ukrainians at the moment to try and get intelligence on exactly which Russian positions were in the area, but we're not entirely sure. But there were three bombs, 3 blasts, and they got closer to the car, and the third one finally hit the car itself.
But they were very accurate, so you figure they were relatively close, or no?
Well, it was an abandoned village, and we had to slow down at this checkpoint. No one there, but we think that maybe there was either artillery looking from miles away. They were waiting for the car to pass this one spot because they knew the car would slow down to a stop to get around this checkpoint. So it was a much easier target. So we think they may have just been watching, waiting. And we were in a small civilian car. There was suddenly no sign of any military press.
Well, the more I read, and you must have seen this, and Trey Yingst writes about this, the horrors, the decapitated bodies, the burned bodies, the crushed faces, the gang-raped women. Did you see these things too? No, not in person on this war. I saw some of the morgues, I saw some of the dead. I have seen those things in other wars. I've been to plenty of them, and I've seen a lot of them up close. But no, not in Ukraine. And apparently, the kind of genocidal activity taking place against the Ukrainian people is apparently pretty bad. There's video of this. Go ahead.
I've spoken to many people. People from the east who are fleeing. I spoke to thousands of them, hundreds of them who came west, and we heard those stories as well. Certainly, you see the mass graves, which we've seen, and you hear these stories, and you do see the images, and it is indiscriminate. There's no doubt about that. There's certainly no care for aiming for military targets, and if it was their way, and we've seen Putin do it before in Grozny, we've seen him do it, in Donbass, in Georgia, so we do know that that's often how they attack.
One of the things is it's very difficult to show that kind of video, on commercial television, whether it's a network or cable or that sort of thing. And I think in some ways, in that respect, the public is not getting a sense for how brutal this is. They can look at buildings and so forth, and God knows a man like you puts his life on the line to tell the public what's going on. But sometimes, it's like after the Holocaust, when you look at the bodies and the graves and how people were brutalized and tortured and so forth, people say, oh, I didn't know that was happening. But it is happening. And how can that get conveyed?
Well, I know it's interesting. We've seen all the videos. So the descriptions you were saying, I've seen those on video. I see a lot of those coming out. I think you've got to be, have a lot of faith in the journalists and know who you trust and who has done the best work. And I think that's for us to go and see some of that horror and see the videos of that horror in this case. And I think there's a fair amount of profiling that can happen online. So you can GPS exactly with landscape and buildings and street signs. And you can go in. There are companies that go in now and can pinpoint exactly where a video is filmed. So you may not have to see that video, but there are teams making sure that is a precise corner of a village, in the east. So it's not just a random sense of here's a horrible video. People take a lot of time and effort to pinpoint exactly where that was, find recent pictures, so when it happened. But yeah, I mean,
let me
you're
ask
right.
you this. These casualties or these injuries that you had, missing leg, part of your leg, then a missing foot, your hand is semi-functional or not at all, your eye. You have to struggle with this every day now, don't you? I mean, to have a full life with your family, and your family has to cope with it too.
Yep, and our routine has changed as a result. And at the moment, I know how much I can do. I can walk for 20 minutes on a good day, and then I have to take my legs off. I've got bone growths in what's left in my left foot that are incredibly painful, so I can walk so far, and then I have to take that off for a little bit. But that's about scheduling. That's about knowing what I can do, how much I can do it. It's about planning days in advance. If I have something big lined up, I won't do as much the day before. And I expect to be able to do everything I used to be able to do. So that's why it doesn't worry me. I know it's a transition we're going through, and it may take a couple of years to get to that spot. But I can move around. I can see through my one eye. I can think and I can hear out of one ear because the other one's gone. But, I'm here, and I feel greatly optimistic by that.
And what is it that you want to return to do?
Well, one thing I've been thinking about recently is that I've spent 15 years covering wars. I've told the horrors, and I've seen them up close and in person. That's what my job has been. And I feel so inspired by the people, the heroes who came to help me. The good, the uplifting, the exceptional. And first of all, I want to go and tell stories about them. I think things that bring people together. It's American exceptionalism. The people who risk their own lives to come in and get me, former U.S. military, the doctors who spend days and weeks over you, our viewers and our audience, thousands of whom reached out with kind notes and encouraging notes. That is so much strength and positivity. And I don't look at what's happened to me, and I don't see the horror. I don't see the injuries. I see the good that pulled me through. And I want to tell those stories. At first, I want to talk about these incredible people. Talk just about, you look around at any news stories. You look at towns or cities or villages or whatever that have been hit hard. Take Ohio, for example. I want to go find the leaders in those communities who pull the community together, who make them strong again, who says, together we can do this, we can do it well. Those are stories I want to start telling. And so that's my initial plan, I think. Look for those. And
I suppose Fox is going to want you to do that anyway, right? They'll help you out with that, I would assume. Could be very interesting.
Yes, we're talking to them. I've got a number of operations coming up, so I'm already talking to them about in-between operations, how much filming can I do? So I'll go out, I'll film for a few weeks, then I'll have a couple operations, be off my feet for a few weeks, then I'll go back out and film. And so, Fox have been amazing. The whole company's been amazing. We will work around my recovery and be able to do as much as I can.
You are truly remarkable, and I know everybody listening thinks that and believes that, particularly people who may be in your situation. People who have had horrific accidents or been to war, or people who were born a certain way and they have to struggle.
Yeah.
This book in many ways is for them, isn't it?
It is. It's totally for them. And the messages I get online now from people who have read the book, they reach out and they open up and they tell me, I've had these surgeries, or I had this experience, or I've lost my son, or... I have been absolutely amazed at how sharing how you feel allows other people to share back. And if I have found that sharing how I feel to be really helpful, really useful to me. And what I found is that it's encouraging others around me to reach out and tell me a little bit about them as well. And so if that is positive, if that helps other people, then hopefully that is what I would like to be doing in the future, is helping others, and they can help me as well. We work together.
Now, I'm not trying to pry, but did you pray to God? Did you say, God, please get me through this, that sort of thing?
I prayed when I was on the floor, when I was injured. For 40 minutes, no one knew we were hit. I had no cell reception. I couldn't, I didn't know what to do. And when you take everything away and you're lying there and I had nothing at all, that's where you go. And one thing, I said, Lord, please take me home. Please get me home to my family, please. Mm-hmm. That's where I went. And, that's just where it comes out when everything else is gone. That's that comfort.
Well, I got to imagine you're exhausted going through the hoops of interviews and so forth, but it's made a difference. People are hearing what you have
I
to
hope so.
say, and you have very important things to say. You've been through hell, and you've come through it, and that is a, people want to see people who get through hell and so forth because they look at their own lives, and what you're saying is, for most of us, I think, you haven't been through this. And if I can get through this, you can get through anything. Right?
No, I know, but, I always wondered, and I've covered wars, and I saw people, going through horrific things, and I always wondered, how would I go through it? What would I be like? And I honestly think that that when you have to, and there's no other option but to do it, we can do it. All of us can do it. You've all got that strength. Everyone's got that strength inside them. You find there's no choice. It's that, or it's the bad way. And I know inside all of us, if you look for it, and you find something hard to work for, and a reason to work for, and you look for something positive and glorious around you and focus on that and enjoy that, we've all got it. We can all do it.
Remarkable. I hope to meet you one day. I feel like I know you, believe it or not. This is a fantastic gentleman, Benjamin Hall. The book is Saved, A War Reporter's Mission to Make It Home. He takes you through it step by step, the hell and all the rest, but he also takes you through in family, recovery, how inspiring this book is and he is. And I want to strongly encourage you, grab your copy of Saved. You can get it on Amazon.com right now or any major bookstore. And I want to thank you so much for your reporting and for this book. And I wish you all the best and your family too.
Thank you, Mark. I look forward to meeting in person as well.
God bless you, my friend. What a remarkable young man. He's got 3 girls. Don't you think, Rich? Unbelievable. He's phenomenal. Really phenomenal.